I don't know how we would have survived without her. I feel like I owe her a debt I can never repay. She's helped us so much, not just with Hugo's physical progress, but also with me emotionally going through the whole journey. Because obviously she's a mother who's been through the same thing, and she's a very strong, very positive lady, and she just glows. You know, if nobody gets it better than her. I think you can't go wrong with going down Linda's path. He couldn't even sit up before on his own, you know? Like, I dread to think where he'd be now if we hadn't been doing the stuff we've been doing.
Welcome, everybody. Today we're going to have a wonderful conversation. Our guest is Tania. Welcome, Tania.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And I had I first saw Tania because she was in the film that was made about Linda. That was the first time I saw you. I saw you on film. And then I paid a visit on Linda in her house in Forest Row. And Tania was there with Hugo. And luckily, I had my smartphone, which had a video camera on it. And I was so fascinated with what was going on, I started to film. And then we've kept up now, what is it, 4 years?
It must be 4 years, yeah.
And this is the best documented case that Linda has worked on. I mean, she's worked with many children over the decades, but we've never, I don't think she has any video record of someone starting and then going through all the different progress. So many people already know Hugo. He's a bit of a star on our YouTube channel. And maybe you could, for people that don't know, maybe you could fill us in a little bit on the story of Hugo. How old is he now? Is he 5.5?
He's soon to turn 6
Okay.
in October. Yeah, so he's doing very well. He was born in very poor condition. He was born at home. It was a home birth. He was undiagnosed breech, so we didn't know. He had a very difficult delivery and got stuck. We think he was deprived of oxygen or deprived of adequate oxygen for up to 45 minutes is what we think, going back over everything. When he was extensively resuscitated, and then after 3 days of hypothermic cooling therapy, they did an MRI, and it was shown that he had suffered a severe injury to the basal ganglia region of his brain. So the basal ganglia is in charge of movement. So he has cerebral palsy, a movement disorder. He seems to me cognitively unaffected, I still argue, but definitely it does affect his movement. So it's made everything very difficult for him just to follow any kind of normal pattern of development. So I found Linda because I plunged myself into researching all the different types of therapy that there were out there for any kind of brain injury. Funnily enough, I was working for a children's brain injury charity at the time when I had Hugo, but didn't find anything of use there, to be honest. So I kept searching and found out about hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So I was ringing around MS centres in the UK, because apparently that's where I heard you'd find these chambers. So I was ringing around the MS charities, and one of them happened to mention Linda's place in East Grinstead, and I thought, that's not too far. It's less than an hour away. So I got in touch with them, and having had a phone conversation with Linda, I came away quite excited to learn about the other stuff she did, not just the chamber, but the diaphragm strengthening technique. You know, I'd never obviously heard of it. No one has, unless you're into this world and happen to find Linda. But so I came down to East Grinstead and met with her, and a lot of it went over my head to start with, because, you know, it's really difficult. I was trying to look after my eldest son, who was 2.25, 2.5 at the time, Hugo, who's a babe in arms, trying to listen to her and digest it all. And it was like all this onslaught of information. Anyway, so we started working together, and gradually things started to make sense. And I must have asked her the same questions so many times over the years. But everything she says makes sense to me. And so that's why I've stuck with that. I have done a lot of therapies with Hugo, but that is absolutely the main one I've done. We see Linda 3 times a week still now, and he continues to progress and just goes from strength to strength. It's just amazing how far he's come. And me and Linda reflect on it sometimes, and I just wonder where he'd be if we hadn't done that. You know, he would not be doing what he's doing. Um, it's slow progress, but it is progress, and that's the important thing, because I think with these children with these kind of conditions, they tend to regress and things get harder and things seize up, their bodies seize up. So obviously I go to checkups with a paediatrician in the UK every 6 months or so. I had one about a month ago now, and the one before that was about 6 months prior, and it was really sort of impressed upon me the importance of that he's at the critical point where he needs a lot of things like AFOs and standing frames and this and that, all things that I've kind of kept on the periphery, and things we haven't really engaged with. And it was really impressed upon me that this was the crucial time he was going to seize up, because bones grow faster than muscles, and if we didn't get in there now and do this stuff, he was just going to seize up more and more. So and then I went back less than a month ago for the most recent one, and the overarching opinion was, keep doing what you're doing. And they were so excited to see like just the progress he'd made in 6 months. And obviously I haven't done any of those things with the AFOs and the standing frames and stuff. So I always tell them what we have been doing and how we do the cross patterning, and I made him crawl in front of them, and there was a specialist physiotherapist there, and she was pretty much blown away by his crawling, and she said, oh my God, he's doing reciprocal crawling, which, you know, these children don't do. So I'm so pleased that she acknowledged it and could see it. She was really excited. So it was nice to see that, because you're always questioning, oh, am I doing the right things, ignoring this stuff, which is the more conventional approach. And, you know, I always get the affirmation later that it is the right thing, that we are definitely doing the right thing. So that's always really pleasing.
That's great. So for our listeners, what's AFO?
Oh, sorry. AFOs are, I think you'd call them splints in America, maybe.
Okay.
AFO foot orthoses. We do have a pair. We just don't use them. So they're sort of like they'll take a cast of their leg and make a plastic version to go around and lock the ankle into a 90-degree angle. I'm sure you've seen them.
I've seen them, and then you mentioned a walking frame.
A standing frames
Standing
where
frame.
they're held in place into a standing position, which the idea behind it sounds all logical and lovely, which is to help develop the hip joints. But I agree with Linda that you're doing it prematurely if the diaphragm hasn't pulled down and opened out the hips to start with. So I think if you use the standing frames and the AFOs without having done the work on the diaphragm first, you're going to be at risk of hip dysplasia, where the femur heads will pop out later down the line. I think you need to build that inner structure first for the integrity. It just makes total sense to me.
And it's the standard, the AFOs and the standing frame. It's the standard approach.
Yeah, it's conventional physiotherapy route.
And then the idea being, well, these children will never be able to hold themselves up, so we need an external brace to help them hold.
Well, I think the idea behind it is that is a way that they will help develop some sort of muscle memory, and I just think in the long term, it makes sense to me that in the long term, if you haven't built up the inner structure and the integrity inside, you're sort of building your house on sand.
That's a big part of this, which is the inner structure, and
Yeah.
sometimes that might sound, all woo woo, but literally there is an internal structure. It's not a metaphor. It's not an image. It's actually a real anatomical thing. So part of Linda's work has to do with, I call it nurturing the diaphragm.
Yeah.
And you do that with Hugo every day, I assume.
I don't do it every day. I probably do it 3 times a week, and we go to Linda 3 times a week. So we try and keep some balance of normality, because I have another child as well. It's hard keeping the right balance of everything. I could do it more than I do, but he's making progress with the amount that I do it. So
how long is a typical session where you're actually focusing on his diaphragm?
Well, in a session with Linda, we don't just do the diaphragm.
Of
We will
course.
do crawling, and we will do crawling over obstacles you've seen in the videos. We'll do patterning. We don't do that so often anymore because he's kind of through that step. Every now and then we'll go back and do a bit more just to reinforce what's already there. So we gauge it by his mood on the day. If he's really tired, she'll probably do a bit more on his diaphragm in a session like that when he's very tired.
And you did a lot of cross patterning. I know when I visited, uh,
Yeah,
and that was that
singing songs.
this old man, yeah.
Yeah.
And so less of that is needed. Well, I guess now he's
Yeah.
self advancing with his own movement.
Yeah. So instead of doing the cross patterning now, we're just like perfecting his technique on an ongoing basis. So when he does the crawling, making sure it's reciprocal. So it's like left hand and right knee plant and land at the same time, and then the next two land at the same time, and that's still ongoing. He's still perfecting that, but the stronger he gets at that, the more his body is continuing to sort of like unfurl, like a little flower opening up. It's nice, and he is starting to engage his toes. And Linda would hold his toes in a certain position as he's crawling to help him just start to push off as he's launching, and then she'll do the other one, and these little things that we're gradually doing, they become patterns and then habits, and then he's starting to do them. So it's really nice to see. He's engaging his toes and crawling up the stairs. It's very early on. I've got a video to send you. It's very early on, and I wouldn't let him do it without somebody behind him, but it's really exciting.
This feels like the good stuff. Strength. Strength. Oh, hold on. And my name's Liz. One more step.
Well done.
Well done.
Crawling upstairs is a big accomplishment.
Absolutely.
And he's in school, right?
Yeah, he's in mainstream school. He loves it.
And that's fantastic because otherwise, if he hadn't been doing this work, he probably wouldn't be in mainstream school.
Yeah, I think it would have been much harder to get him into a mainstream setting if he wasn't as strong and able as he is. Because also it's given him so much confidence. He's such a confident child. It's beautiful, his confidence. So I think that carries him a long way.
Well, he's learned confidence through action.
Yeah,
Every visit with Linda is another challenge, and he always rises to the challenge.
he does. He loves it. I
Uh,
mean, it's not always been easy. We have had behavior problems along the way. He can get stuck in a loop with things, and it's almost like the more that he's been able to move his body and move through stuff, the more he's been able to move through stuff mentally and be taken out of that loop. Behaviors where he would go on and on about something and go round in a circle and wouldn't let something go, almost like terrible twos behavior. But the more that his movement progressed, the more his thinking abilities progressed, and how he could get through a situation like that just seemed to go hand in hand with it.
well, I know Linda talks very eloquently about the terrible twos period, and it's something that everyone has to go through. Uh, uh, we start out as the center of the universe, and then we discover that we're
Yeah,
not the center of the universe, and it's
rude
very
awakening.
yeah. So yeah, I imagine. I mean, can you imagine if you couldn't move around, what that would do to your psychology?
Yeah,
Being able
exactly.
to crawl and now crawl upstairs. Uh,
Mm.
In fact, Hugo was the inspiration for starting the YouTube channel. We had the one video, and then we got new material from you, and then my friend Paul helps edit it together, and then we thought, well, we really should show this to the world. And so now we have this will be the 101st video, this one that we're doing right now.
Oh my goodness! Wow,
there's a lot because Linda has also successfully treated dementia. Treated people, children with extreme autism.
Yeah.
She has interesting things to say about walking. We've looked at videos together with her doing a voiceover, looking at the way tigers crawl. Every now
She's amazingly agile, isn't she, for her age?
She was treating the husband of an old student of mine, and he had quite serious dementia. He'd pretty much lost the ability to communicate, and he wasn't able to drive a car anymore. And so Linda was teaching them crawling, but
she's tried to show me a few times, because when I turn up there and I'm stressed, she keeps on saying to me, you need to do the crawling. I'm like, yes, I know. Can you show me again? Because you think you know how to crawl still. And then when you try and do it and Linda's watching you, you realise you're not doing it as perfectly as you think you are.
I was going to ask you if you're crawling.
Stress and stuff, I do notice eventually that one of the first things that goes is that I'm not breathing properly. If I'm having a really stressful period, you just think, oh, I'm shallow breathing or upper chest breathing. You're not taking a deep breath. So, I think we can all use it in those times, even if we don't already have a weakened diaphragm. I still think it's going to be, have its place for lots of reasons.
Yeah, and this crawling restored him to now he's having conversations again. He's completely engaged with life. He got his driver's license back from the state.
It's amazing.
It really is. So it's useful for everything. And your point of we think we know how to crawl until we get down on the ground. I was hopeless. But I will say I'm crawling 15 minutes every day. I should be doing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's nice, and the coordination is it's not so obvious.
Mm.
And Hugo, of course, is a great inspiration to me, and
oh, that's so lovely.
He really is.
He is to me as well, believe me.
Yeah, and that's why we've been making so many videos and posting them. We hope that other people can see and feel inspired.
Yeah, because he's met. We had a family come and visit Linda from Texas after watching Hugo's videos, and Hugo felt like he was the bee's knees, because he was like, "Oh, you've seen the videos." He's like, "Yeah, let me show you," and he was teaching them, and it was really sweet to see, because it made him feel really like he was just really proud of himself, and it spurred him on to do even better. And when he has these moments where he doesn't want to cooperate, because obviously, he's 5, he's not always an angel and doesn't always want to do therapy. I have to remind him of these things to just motivate him again, and it does work.
Where were we at 5 years old? We certainly weren't working on something so challenging as he is,
Just playing.
The character qualities he's building are going to be extraordinary. So what would you say to a family in your situation about Linda, and what would you advise them to do?
She's an amazing woman. I feel reluctant to even share her sometimes. Let me put it that way. She's so good. I don't know how we would have survived without her. I feel like I owe her a debt I can never repay. She's helped us so much. Not just with Hugo's physical progress, but also with me emotionally going through the whole journey, because obviously she's a mother who's been through the same thing, and she's a very strong, very positive lady, and she just glows. If nobody gets it better than her. I think you can't go wrong with going down Linda's path. There's obvious progress if you even just looking at Hugo's journey, even if you ignore the stuff she's done years ago with Dawn and the other children. There's obvious progress, and it's harmless. It's like harm-free intervention. It's hard work because you have to do the time commitment, but actually you don't need to do that much time commitment to see progress. So I think when you see the progress, you realize it's worth the time commitment. It's not just something you're doing just to check off the list, you know. There are gains from it.
As you mentioned, it's slow. You know, you don't see gains necessarily in a week or a month, but when you look back, especially now that we have the videos to look at, you realize how far Hugo's come.
He couldn't even sit up before on his own, you know. Like, I dread to think where he'd be now if we hadn't been doing the stuff we've been doing.
And you know what?
Sitting in some very supportive seating, you know, that's where he'd be now. He'd be sat in a very well supportive, contoured seat to look like he's in the right position, but nothing on the inside would be strong enough to hold him up, you know.
And that ability to hold up, for people that are new to this, most of us know that the diaphragm is involved with breathing. You know, we will probably all learn that in school somewhere along the line. But none of us were ever taught that the diaphragm is also the primary postural muscle. It's what allows you to sit up straight. And it's why very, very young babies don't sit up, because the diaphragm's not developed yet.
Yeah, they're not supposed to yet.
Yeah. And then the challenge for someone with an undeveloped diaphragm is they just don't have that internal, literally internal, not metaphorical, literal internal strength to hold themselves up. But of course, now Hugo does that quite well. And you know,
I've watched his torso change shape from like a pear drop with tiny narrow shoulders and a bulbous diaphragm and sort of almost almost overinflated belly, like a pear drop shape, to much more. He's much more rectangular now. Okay. You know, like where everything's opened out at the top, where the diaphragm has sort of got into a good tone and good shape and started to descend. He's come into a much more typical shape that you'd see for a 5-year-old child. I've seen it before my eyes, him change shape. It's amazing.
Linda says, and I don't know, I don't see it myself, but I know she does see it, that she just knows the condition of someone's diaphragm based on the shape of their body.
Yeah.
Which is such a radically different view of everything. But as you point out very early in our conversation, at first you kind of wonder, what is she talking about?
Yeah.
You know, and then as time goes on, some of the things she says start to really make sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen like things disappear that were issues more, such as reflux. He had a lot of reflux as a baby, and then it was, you know, projectile vomiting in the night. Every time he'd had a milk feed, he'd quite often have a projectile vomit afterwards, because there wasn't much strength in there. And as I started doing the diaphragm stuff more and more, it diminished. It didn't vanish overnight, but it diminished. You know, he'd always get car sick. He doesn't anymore now. It's very rare that he's sick in the car now. But it used to be that I couldn't do a 10-minute journey without having to pull over somewhere and put a bowl under him, hold his head up so he wasn't choking. It was traumatic. You know, we couldn't do a car journey without him being sick and me worrying that he was going to choke on it.
Maybe we'll end on this note. Linda is absolutely the most flexible 80-year-old person I've ever seen. I think there are people in their 30s and 20s even.
Yeah.
She moves like an uninjured teenager, you know, who's always, you know what I mean?
She's as nimble as a mountain goat. She amazes me.
Yeah. And yet there's a method to it. It's not I think something that just fell on her from heaven. You know, she has a methodology that works for Hugo, worked for my friend's husband, you know, and works for her. It could really work for anybody. We just have to get our mats and start crawling according to
do the work. Yeah.
Well, Tania, thank you so much for this time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's lovely talking to you.
Great.
Thank you for having me.